90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. This is from the Pressbox, part of the WHPC Sports Talk family, which includes, of course, from the Pressbox Mondays at 9, and Mondays at 5 p.m., Tuesdays at 5 p.m., Thursday at 9 p.m., and Fridays at 3 p.m. I am your host, Rob Leonard, for From the Pressbox, and joining me is my co-host, or should I say my co-host? I'm the co-host. Anyway, either way, it's Tim Leonard, my brother and award-winning sports writer.
Yes, I'm all of the above.
Joining us today on the phone because of various reasons he is on the phone today. Welcome to the January 14th edition, 2019 of From the Press Box. Brother, so much to get to today. Lots of football, including the Jets.
Tons of big games.
Oh,
none of them involve the Jets, though.
Yeah, and the 50th anniversary, before we start, the Daily News and Sunday's paper, our friend Wally Matthews had a nice article on Joe Namath, talking about how they're going to be doing something during the Super Bowl to honor the 50th anniversary edition, or 50th anniversary of, I should say, of the New York Jets.
As they should. That was the last time the Jets were in the Super Bowl.
Right, and they were the last one. That was the last time they were in the Super Bowl 50 years ago. It's hard to believe. But a nice article from Wally concerning Joe Willie. Matter of fact, Joe's the one who says they're not sure when they're doing it or how they're doing it, but they're supposedly doing a tribute to him. And the NFL, out of all the leagues, and Wally mentioned it, even though they film every game, they make every game that they film look like Academy Award-winning films. They don't look back at their history very often, the way Major League Baseball is always looking back. But not the football games for some reason. I'm not sure why. They brought up a good point. Well,
obviously Super Bowl III is probably, the most storied Super Bowl game,
right,
just because of Joe Namath's guarantee and the fact that the Jets were actually able to back it up. It was a stunning result back then because nobody thought that the AFL was nearly as good as the NFL. People were under the impression that the AFL was like a minor league compared to the NFL. So that was the big reason why it was so stunning. And the Colts obviously were a double-digit favorite, and they were expected to destroy the Jets. The Colts, that Colts team was supposed to be one of the all-time great football teams.
Right.
Much like you could have looked at them almost like the undefeated Patriots team that the Giants beat in the Super Bowl. But they were that level that people thought that this game was a foregone conclusion. So I think that Jets team certainly deserves whatever honors that it gets. The kind of amusing thing to me is that Wally Matthews is writing about this. Wally Matthews was probably about 6 years old when that game was played.
Right. Well, that's how old I was. Well, I was 5.
And so yeah, but you're talking about grown men who have gone through their entire lives and probably don't have any recollection of the Jets winning the Super Bowl because it wasn't the big event back then that it is now.
Yeah, it wasn't, and it's fun to watch it. If the NFL Network ends up, or ESPN ends up showing the game, I hope they show the TV version, not the NFL films, even though that's where you get the number one, Joe Willie going into the locker room at the end of the game with we're number one. But watching the game as just a regular ball game, Kurt Gowdy calling it, there's a lot of mistakes in it. If the Jets were playing a better or more thoughtful team, the Jets easily could have lost. I mean, there were just so many mistakes that the Colts made, and you know what? Joe Willie was the MVP. He didn't throw one touchdown. He only had one running touchdown with Matt Snell.
Right,
and Jim Turner
three
had
field goals.
Yeah, so it was a ball control game,
exactly,
and on purpose. So it's interesting watching back. But on Sunday's Daily News cover, Joe Willie still sells newspapers.
Of course he does.
He's on the back page. It says, "Soup for you. Namath tells news Jets will be honored at Super Bowl for 50th anniversary of historic win." So
yes, and apparently it was a big deal on Sunday. They were promoting Maroon 5 as the big halftime guest, which I thought was public knowledge for a couple of months now, but I don't know. I don't know why it was such a big deal. And to me, it's if Maroon 5 is going to be your Super Bowl halftime performer, and somebody named big boy who obviously must be a rapper, and I don't even know who the other act is. But if Maroon 5 is your main act at the Super Bowl, I think it might be time to shut down the halftime performance.
I agree with you, and I'm not looking. That's when we go to when we'll hopefully be at Bob and Marie Tuck's house. That's when we go for the refill on the meatballs.
Yeah, that definitely. That's going to be a time to leave the couch.
One more thing about the 16-8 team. Saturday, there was a game, special on CBS Channel 2, the 50th anniversary show, and I'm not sure if it's the same thing that's on the Jets website. It's a sit-down show showing highlights, and Joe Willie's there, Ralph Baker, and a couple other players talking about the game and stuff. So I'm not sure it's the same game. It might be, I don't know. But anyway, let's talk about the NFL. I love seeing Joe Willie because as a kid he was my idol, even though I didn't play football at all. I wanted to be Joe Namath. And who didn't? Let's be honest.
Everybody wanted to be Joe Namath, on and off the field. Come on.
He had it made. Now, okay, let's start off, brother, with the NFL playoffs. The Rams beat the Cowboys 30-22. Always happy when the Cowboys lose. The Rams actually had a pretty good game, actually, though. I thought they played very well.
Well, here's the thing that happened with the NFL playoffs that I don't know that everybody expected. The top two seeds from both sides, the AFC and the NFC, are going to meet in the championship game. I know personally I said last week that I wouldn't be surprised if we had at least one upset in the AFC.
Right.
And neither team, neither the Colts or the Colts didn't play well. In fact, the Chiefs' defense shut them down, which was a huge surprise because the Chiefs' defense has been maligned all season and really hasn't been very good. But against the Colts on Saturday, they were outstanding. And the Chiefs wound up going up 14-0 in the first quarter, and it was 24-7 at halftime. And at that point, you pretty much knew that the game was over because one thing the Chiefs do is they don't stop scoring. So you know they were going to score more points, and the Colts would have to out-duel them, which they are just not equipped to do. I mean, the Colts basically have one receiver, and that's T.Y. Hilton, who's an outstanding receiver. But my thoughts in considering that the Colts would be able to upset the Chiefs were basically threefold. Number one, that the Colts had won 10 of their last 11 games, and after starting the season 1-5, they actually wound up making the playoffs. So they were actually the hottest team in the NFL. Number two, the Chiefs kind of faded a little bit down the stretch after they lost Kareem Hunt to the suspension. Their offense it seemed like they were kind of missing a gear, and they sputtered a bit, and they lost a couple of games that I didn't think they should have lost, especially one where they allowed the Chargers to come back and beat them on I think it was Monday Night Football. And three was, again, the Colts basically having, or I thought that, that the negative for the Colts was just that they had the one receiver. But right. I thought that because the Chiefs' defense was so bad that the running game was going to be able to, kind of lead the way. But the Colts' running game did next to nothing. And then that was a bit of a surprise. Marlon Mack was, I think he had 47 yards, and he'd been very good in the last, I want to say, month or so, towards the end of the regular season and last week in the playoffs. So, those three things that I thought were all going to go the Colts' way actually all went the Chiefs' way. Chargers on Sunday, that game was embarrassing. It really was. I think a lot of people thought that the Chargers had a good chance to beat the Patriots, and instead, it was 35-7 at halftime. The Patriots scored on their first four possessions. Not only scored touchdowns on their first four possessions. It was 28-7 before you blinked. And Phillip Rivers was infuriated with the officiating. His own team did not play well. His offensive line was terrible. The Patriots blitzed him. They pressured him all over the place, and he got hit seemingly every time he threw the ball. And Phillip Rivers is a guy who you can rattle if you do that, because as good as he is, as talented as he is, he still has a little bit of immaturity despite being 37 years old.
Right.
Yeah, he certainly doesn't like to be hit. He certainly likes things to go his way in the game, and he was hurried all game, and that's something that you need to be able to do to Tom Brady. And the Chargers, as good as they were last week in the wild card game, their defense was spectacular last week, which was why I thought they could upset the Patriots on Sunday, but it didn't happen. And then the big reason was because the Chargers defense just didn't show up.
Right.
So, again, Brady with his quick drops, his short passes for the most part, and he did what he always does. But the key to beating the Patriots is, number one, trying to pressure him, and you have to get your edge rushers and your linebackers. You have to get somebody into the pocket to get him to move his feet, and the Chargers didn't do any of that. And you got to be able to hit Brady. And the only way you can hit him is if you get somebody into that backfield. You're allowed one step after he releases the ball. So make sure you use that step and smack him around a little bit. So, when the Giants beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, that was how they did it. They pressured Brady, made him move his feet. He doesn't like doing that. He likes being able to stand in the pocket and have enough time to throw the ball. Not that he needs a lot of time because, like I said, it's a 3-step drop usually. But that's how you rattle Brady. And Brady was not rattled on Sunday at all by the Chargers. And like I said, 35-7 at halftime. The game was over at that point. So, the fact that the final score was 41-28, the game was certainly not as close as it sounds, and not that it really sounds all that close. But like I said, 35-7 at halftime was much more indicative of how the game went.
Yeah, it was. I don't like seeing the Patriots win. I love seeing the Patriots lose and the Cowboys lose. It's just part of being a football fan.
New York football fan.
New York football fan. That helps. Anyway, what other games do we have to talk about here? We talked about the Chiefs and the Colts, Saints and the Eagles.
Saints and the Eagles.
Saints 20, Eagles 14.
This was probably the best game of the weekend, although I'm sure the Eagles fans won't think so. But Philly took a 14-0 lead, which I'm sure nobody thought was going to happen. And then New Orleans, it took them a while to battle back, but they had plenty of time to come back because the Eagles, it was 14-0 in the first quarter. So New Orleans finally took the lead late in the third quarter, a 2-yard pass from Drew Brees to Michael Thomas, and that was pretty much it. Again, the Saints are another team that their defense isn't as good as maybe you'd like it to be, but that's kind of the way the NFL is these days. It's really hard because of the salary cap to dominate both sides of the ball. So you're either going to be an offensive team or a defensive team, unless you just get fortunate in the draft and are able to put together one side of the ball with a lot of draft picks. But the Saints defense is to me, the Saints are probably the most balanced team in the playoffs, because their defense is able to get it done, whereas, like I said, the Chiefs' defense normally isn't very good. I don't think the Patriots' defense is necessarily a shutdown kind of defense, but the Saints' defense can do that. So the fact that they were able to hold the Eagles without a point for 3 quarters after they fell behind 14-0 didn't necessarily surprise me. I still think the Saints are going to win this thing. Who knows? I mean, I've been wrong on a lot of picks so far, but I think the Saints have to be considered the favorite to win the Super Bowl. Of course, they have to get past. They have to. Who am I looking
Rams,
at? They have to get past the Rams first, which obviously isn't going to be easy. And that's a team. Remember that Monday night game that the Rams played with the Chiefs earlier in the season, where they both scored 50 points.
Right.
So that's obviously a team that can put points on the board. So we'll see what happens, and can the Saints match the Rams offensively, and can their defense do enough to keep the Rams, say, below 35 points? That's going to be the 2 talking points as far as that game goes.
And the Saints, the only team out of the 4 games this weekend to score under 30 points. They scored 20. So.
And win. Yeah.
And win. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, but that's something of a tribute to their defense, because the offense didn't do what the offense normally does. But that being said, the Eagles are a good defensive team. So, and I mean, that's now the Super Bowl champions are out. And not many people expected them to win the wild card game last week, and they managed to get through that game. But the clock struck midnight, as they say, as the cliche goes.
Yeah, we're going to take a break right now. You're listening to From the Press Box right here on 90.3 WHPC, streaming on the streaming on the iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn app, and also at nccradio.org.
All hit music.
For all those songs radio has forgotten about, join me, Big Ed, Mondays from 10 a.m. till noon for The Good Gold Show. We'll bring back all the great hits of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and more. The sounds of doo-wop to disco, all the Motown, soul, and great rock and roll. We'll even take your requests and dedications to The Good Gold Show.
Music.
On the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC, and streaming on the iHeartRadio app.
Yeah.
Hey, check it out. I'm gonna need you to turn up your volume.
No, I'm supposed to say that. Come on. Hey, look, check it out. It's your guy, DJ Steph, the saucy man himself. Tune into It's Saucy, where I play nothing but hip-hop and reggae music.
1, 2, 3, hit me!
Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. on the voice of Nassau Community College on 90.3 WHPC.
Listen!
Ah, relationships, the agony and the ecstasy. Relationships can make your life miserable. Relationships can also improve your quality of life, depending upon how well you manage them. Relationships with your parents, your friends, your lovers, your co-workers, your boss, even complete strangers. If you want to know how to have great relationships, tune into Just Relationships with me, Dr. Duffy Spencer, every Wednesday afternoon at 3:30. Learn all you need to know to have the time of your life. Just Relationships on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
90.3 WHPC reminds you that we do anything for kids.
Whether it's finding the owner of a lost toy or picking up a dropped sippy cup.
Yet 1 in 6 children in the U.S. struggle with hunger. That's 13 million kids who aren't sure where their next meal is coming from.
Help end childhood hunger and give all of our kids the meals they need to grow.
Learn how at feedingamerica.org.
This message is brought to you by Feeding America, the Ad Council, and the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
90.3 WHPC from the Press Box on your radio and on your listening device. I'm Rob Leonard. Joining me, of course, is my co-host and, yes, my brother, Tim Leonard. Award-winning sports writer, we should say. Anyway, speaking of football, let's get to the more local thing for our local team, the Jets. They signed Adam Gase. Is that how you say his name, Timothy?
Adam Gase, yes.
Yeah. He is their new head coach, all done before the playoffs. You think they might have waited until after the playoffs, all playoffs, including college, were done to get a coach. I know some Jet fans maybe aren't happy about this, especially since he comes out of the Dolphin organization. But a lot of other people like him.
Well, a lot of Jet fans are not happy with this move. And I'll be honest, I'm not really sure why. Because I know what they're thinking. Their thinking is that, well, he coached the Dolphins weren't very good, and Ryan Tannehill is still crap. Well,
right.
Yeah, okay, so what? Ryan Tannehill was never very good to begin with. Sam Darnold is an immensely better quarterback than Ryan Tannehill will ever be in his life. So the problem with the Dolphins is a lot of similarities to what Todd Bowles' issue was with the Jets. The Dolphins didn't have talent. When your quarterback is Ryan Tannehill and Frank Gore, who is a Hall of Fame running back without a doubt, but at this stage of his career, he's not supposed to be anybody's number one running back. He was the Dolphins' number one back this year. And Kenyon Drake was supposed to be that guy, but he never really turned out to be the guy that they wanted him to be. So when you're starting with that kind of handicap already, what are you supposed to do with a team? And then I said the same thing for much of the season with Todd Bowles when Jet fans were complaining that he's not getting it done, he's not a good coach, he's not this, he's not that. I'm like, look at the roster. If his roster's terrible, then you're going to have a terrible team. You know, you can't coach mediocre players into great players. There has to be a certain talent level there.
But there also has to be, brother, a sense that a coach can influence a mediocre player or a player that should be better but isn't. You would think,
of course.
You would think, the way the coach handles him in practice, how the person is affected by the coach. Does the person believe in the coach? That's always a problem.
I'm certainly not saying that the coach is not going to improve players. That is a coach's job. But what I am saying is that there has to be a reality in terms of how much better a coach can make a player. You know, you're not going to turn some anonymous D lineman into Aaron Donald, because Aaron Donald has a combination of size, speed, and strength that no other human being has.
Right.
So you can make players incrementally better. And who knows? I mean, with the right scheme, you can make a mediocre player possibly great. But, on a 53-man roster, how many times is that going to happen? And the answer is rarely. So there has to be a certain amount of talent built into your roster for a team to be successful. And the Jets just weren't there. So, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when Todd Bowles was fired. And since then, Todd Bowles has already gotten a job as defensive coordinator. But we said, look at the roster, look at the wide receivers,
right.
Look at the O line. Is there, and look at the running backs. What talent did they have on offense besides Sam Darnold?
Not much. Not much.
When you look at the Jets offense, how many of those players are going to still be Jets in 2 years?
Half, maybe.
And not even half. Much less than half. If it's still half, then the Jets still won't be a good team. But there's probably, out of the starting 11 on offense, I'd be surprised if more than 3 of those guys are still on the team in 2 years. And one of them is Darnold. So 2 other guys, maybe Robbie Anderson or maybe one of the linemen.
Right.
But that offense needs a complete revamp. And as we keep saying, the Jets have more than $100 million to spend in free agency this season. So don't be surprised if after a season where the Jets can spend a lot of money, don't be surprised if Adam Gase suddenly becomes a much better coach next year.
That's true. Look what happened to Joe Torre. He got hired by Steinbrenner. Everyone said clueless Joe. He turned out to be one of the greatest managers ever.
Exactly.
So,
see what happens when you have talent.
But he also had talent, and he also knew how to move it around and make it better, and combine it to make it better. I think that's why he was so good.
Well,
he learned along the way.
Yeah, Joe Torre's greatest gift as a manager, especially with the Yankees, was managing George Steinbrenner.
Well, yeah, that was
and not letting George Steinbrenner become a distraction to the clubhouse. And I mean, he took a lot of hits from George Steinbrenner.
Oh yeah,
but he didn't let that get back to the players. He didn't let the blow-ups dominate the media. It was we got games to win, and we're not going to allow any distractions to prevent us from accomplishing the goals that we have.
By the way,
that was his greatest gift.
By the way, I love the fact that Peyton Manning called Jets owner Christopher Johnson to advocate Gase.
Yeah, that obviously carries a lot of weight.
Yeah,
because Gase, as far as I know, I think he coached Manning at Tennessee back in the day. I have to double check that, but I thought that's what it was with their connection. Because, or maybe it was with the Broncos, and he was before he became a head coach. I got to double check that. But as much as I don't like this guy, and by this guy I'm talking about the Daily News Jets writer Manish Mehta, I'm not a fan. But he wrote a column last week, I guess it was, or right when the Gase announcement was made. Actually, no, it was I think Friday maybe. But he makes a lot of good points. Or he made a lot of good points in this story, in that Gase is a guy who is going to demand accountability. And the first that's the first thing about him. And some players have ripped Gase because they say he's too intense, he's too demanding, and those guys were traded by the Dolphins. Jarvis Landry is one of them. He's got no time for guys who are looking to be me first players. You know, he just wants guys who are passionate about football, who want to play the game, and who want to play it right. And I don't have a problem with that. You know, and the second thing is he's got some experience as far as developing quarterbacks. And obviously, you know, we've been saying this for months now, that was a quality that the next Jets coach had to have.
Sure.
Now the critics will say, well, he didn't develop Ryan Tannehill. And Tim Leonard will say, well, some quarterbacks can't be developed. You know, look at Mark Sanchez. Look at Geno Smith.
Right.
There are some quarterbacks who they might come into the league with all sorts of fanfare and headlines, and you know, they might be the next big thing, but that doesn't mean they're the next big thing.
But by the way, brother, Gase, this is according to BroncosWire.com. It says Gase was Denver's quarterback coach when Manning signed with the Broncos in 2012. In 2013, Gase was promoted to offensive coordinator, a position he held through 2014 season. Gase left to join John Fox's staff on the Bears in 2015. During his 3 years with Gase, Manning threw 131 touchdown passes. During Denver's record-breaking season in 2013, Manning threw 55 passes.
Touchdown passes,
yeah. 55 touchdown passes. That has remained the single-season record for the NFL.
That's correct.
It says here the Broncos went to the Super Bowl year. Gase left, but Manning battled through injuries and threw only 9 touchdown passes that season. And it says here he also visited Manning, meaning he visited the Dolphins after he retired to see Gase. So,
right.
So he obviously likes him if he's traveling to Miami, unless it was some sort of business function. Who knows?
Well,
but
I mean, Peyton, as far as I know, is living back. I don't know if he's in Indiana or if he's in Denver or if he's back in Knoxville, because I know he's got a place in Knoxville.
Right.
But you know, I mean, first of all, A, who doesn't want to go to Miami? But B, he made the effort to go see his old coach. I mean, obviously, and he called the Jets, to advocate for Gase. So obviously, he likes the guy. He thinks he's a good coach. He probably should have recommended him for the Broncos, but whatever. But again, I found another quote. This one was from NJ Advanced Media. Somebody asked Alshon Jeffrey, the Eagles wide receiver, and he played for the Bears when Gase, as you said, was the offensive coordinator in 2015. Jeffrey loves Gase. All right. And he was talking about, he said, this is the quote. He said, quote, his impact will be huge. I think Sam Darnold will excel. Knowing the Adam Gase that I know and the potential the Jets are looking for, I'm pretty sure Sam is going to be a Super Bowl MVP. All right? He can win a Super Bowl. Darnold will be an MVP in this league working with Gase.
Wow, that's pretty strong.
So how about that, Jet fans?
And, of course, Joe Willie was talking about Gase being a good coach, too. So, we'll see what happens. By the way, we like to give out the authors, the writers who write. It was John Heath of the Broncos Wire. We didn't know his name for a second. Now we know his name.
I don't know.
But we like to mention the writers because too many people don't mention the writers. They're stealing it from the newspaper. So
and I will quote one other guy, brother. My man Jeff Cummins, I call him House. Everybody needs a friend named House.
Sure.
He does not share Manish Mehta's optimism. Again, like I said before, I asked him for his opinion on the Gase hiring, and he went with that whole Ryan Tannehill, claim that he developed Ryan Tannehill. And that his Gase's signature victories came against some bad Jets teams.
Right.
House wanted Mike McCarthy, and apparently Mike McCarthy really didn't get a good look from the Jets because apparently Gase wasn't even the first choice from what I read.
Well, who was the first choice?
The first choice was apparently Baylor coach Matt Rule. But the two sides couldn't agree on staffing issues because apparently the Jets wanted Rule to either hire a defensive coordinator. I think the Jets were looking to get Greg Williams in as a defensive coordinator, and Rule was. He was. A lot of coaches are. Hey, if you're hiring me to coach, I want my guys to come with me. And whether that were his guys from Baylor or he wanted to assemble his own staff of NFL people, I'm not really sure because it wasn't really discussed in detail. But that was the sticking point, and Matt Rule told the Jets, look, this isn't going to work. If this was the quote. I think this quote was from Rich Cimini. From ESPN.com, but he has Rule saying, quote, I'm never going to be in an arranged marriage. I'm never going to subcontract out jobs for offense and defense. I'm always going to hire people I believe in and are going to do things our way. And that was in response to the Jets making staff suggestions. Coaches want to hire their own guys because the one thing that all coaches will say at some point, especially football coaches, is you're hired to be fired.
Sure.
And every coach, as much as they want to win, they also want to make sure that whenever they get fired, that it's further down the road. They want to keep that job for as long as they can. And that's part of the goal. Yes, winning is the goal, but keeping your job is another goal.
And also, you want to take care of your buddies. The guys who know your system.
It's not a matter of taking care of your buddies. It's a matter of bringing in people who you trust and who you believe in. It's not just hiring some clown. Like Billy Martin brought Art Fowler with him everywhere. That was an example of hiring your buddy because Art. Basically, it was pretty well known that Art was just Billy's drinking buddy.
Right.
Did he know something about pitching? Yes, he did, but he was never regarded as any kind of genius pitching coach. But that is an example of taking care of your buddies.
Right.
This Matt Rule, he wants to bring in coaches that he trusts and coaches that he knows have had success with him, and that because coaches build up staffs, and that when they get guys who are talented and who they trust, eventually some of those guys are going to leave because they're going to get better opportunities, or maybe they'll get a head coaching job of their own. Like a little known fact, Nick Saban started out as an assistant coach with Bill Belichick.
Yeah, people forget that.
Yeah, so, but just like I'm saying, an example of a guy who eventually got his own chance and moved up, and he wasn't going to stay an assistant coach forever. But that's the hiring part of a head coach, and it even goes back to a GM. Because you remember when McCagnon got hired, Todd Bowles was already here.
Yeah, we got about that.
It's a backwards way of doing things.
Yeah.
The GM wants to hire his own coach, just like a coach wants to hire his own assistants. So there's all an order to it, and if you don't do it in the proper order, there tends to be chaos in the organization. So this is like I said, I think Gase. I'm not crazy about the pick or the agreement to the hire, but I'm certainly not as negative as a lot of other people are. I think Adam Gase, is going to have success with the Jets. I don't know how long that's going to take, but a good draft and some quality free agents that the Jets have the money to spend on, I think would be a recipe for success. I'm not saying the Jets are going to turn it around in one season, but it wouldn't surprise me. Let's put it this way: an 8-8 season next year certainly wouldn't surprise me. And depending on how well they do in the free agent market, it could even be 10-6. But the other thing that I'm going to caution people about: NFL free agent market and the baseball free agent market are two different things.
No fooling, brother.
In the sense that in the NFL free agent market, teams pretty much always overpay, because that's the only way you're going to get players in. So for me, a team that's close to winning, those are the teams that really should go after free agents the hardest. Now, the Jets, yes, they will have all this money to spend, but it's almost to me like they shouldn't necessarily splash it on the biggest and best players, because those guys are going to get overpaid to an extreme, and that's going to cut into the amount of money that the Jets have. It's almost like the Jets it would be better off for them to spread some of the money around and try and get some better values The players might not have as much of an impact, but better to get maybe 8 or 9 players and fill a bunch of holes than get 4 or 5 players and have a handful or a few really good players and still have a lot of those same holes that you had last year.
It seems like Christopher Johnson's willing, though, to spend his money. Maybe unlike the Wilpons, it seems like Christopher Johnson's ready to spend. So my only qualm about Gase, first of all, I keep looking at, I see Case, who's our 6th grade teacher, Mr. Case.
Right.
I see that, but that's a whole other why don't you wait until after the playoffs when this is going to be some available coaches? Is it that important to assign him now instead of in 3 weeks?
Well, yeah, because right now coaches are being hired. So if the Jets wanted to get the guy, if they were sold on Gase and they were like, yes, this is the guy that we want, why wait?
Right.
Because there have been other coaches that already have been. So I mean, to me, the worst hire was Cliff Kingsbury, who came out of college as a former backup quarterback in the NFL. And he's going to Arizona, and nobody understands that move because he wasn't even a good college coach. So I'm not sure how that happened or how he managed to impress the Cardinals, but that's the one hire of the carousel so far that's got a lot of people scratching their heads. By the way, just to finish up with what my man House said,
right.
He's giving Gase 4 years. Same as Todd Bowles. I thought Bowles had 3 years. I guess he had 4. Yeah, he did have 4.
He had 4.
Gone in 2003. No Super Bowl title, of course. And he says, and you can write this down. The Jets will surpass the futility of the Rangers with a drought that will exceed 54 seasons. So
wow.
That's my man House. And I'll tell you what, House is a football expert. I have no problem saying that.
The thing
House knows
is,
more about football than anybody I know.
I didn't think about it until he mentioned it, but that 54-year drought is huge. And, it's funny, the Rangers came close several times to breaking it. 79 was a great year for them. They until they came across the Canadians. It's interesting how you look at that, and no one looks at the Jets as a team that's never going to win, so to speak, the way they looked at the Rangers. The Rangers had some opportunities. 71-72, the 72-73, those teams are very good.
Exactly.
So it's interesting how it's just so expected with the Jets, even though they've had some runs where they almost made the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and it's even a little strange because the Jets have had some success, but I was actually going to compare it with the Rangers because the Islanders won Stanley Cups, but if you look at it, the Giants have won a couple of Super Bowls there, and it's not like the Jets don't have the pressure to win, but it's almost like teams kind of look at them and say, well, the whole thing about same old Jets comes up all the time when the Jets have a bad season, but they're not lovable losers like the Cubs once were. It's kind of hard to define it, that there just really are no expectations where the Jets are involved. Even when Rex Ryan brought them to the AFC Championship game those 2 years in a row, it was just kind of like Jet fans were along for the ride, and certainly they enjoyed it, but I don't think that anybody had any kind of real expectations as far as, oh, yeah, we're going to the Super Bowl.
Well, another thing I think also is that thing about the Jets quarterback in 1968, Joe Willie Namath, 50 years later, still the king of New York. Yeah. If he shows up anywhere, the media just goes and hangs out with him. They love talking to this guy. Plus, he knows football, even if he's hanging out in Florida. I wish he was doing some games, but he's not. And you know what? I think that's part of it. He's the connection to the Super Bowl III team.
He's the connection to the glory days, just like Clyde Frazier is a connection to the glory days of the Knicks,
right?
And a similar personality, similar man about town. They both had those personalities. They were the kings in New York when they were playing because A, their teams were successful, and B, they had the look and they had the personality, and they were those guys. They were the swinging singles back then. That's what they called them.
We've always heard stories that Joe Willie coming out of an apartment building. Was it the night before the Super Bowl, or a couple of nights before?
I don't even remember.
A cop saw him, and he said, "Well, if Joe Willie can get up at this hour, that I'm going to bet on him or something. I forgot the story. It's a funny
It might
story.
have been before a playoff game because
Yeah.
he wouldn't have been in New York before the Super Bowl.
Right,
so,
yeah.
but yeah, I do remember that story in Mark Kriegel's book.
Right.
Namath, where you, like you said, the cop saw Namath getting out of an apartment and the sun was coming up, and it was game day. And he said, well, Joe must have had a pretty rough night. I'm going to bet against the Jets, and then Jets wound up winning by like 2 or 3 touchdowns or something.
That's the beauty of Joe Namath. And he loves New York, too. You know, he's a guy who, he's not a Randy Johnson. Get rid of that camera. Joe's
Right.
like, bring the camber along. So,
Yeah.
and I think it's part of it, too. I mean, it's been 50 years, but you know what? 54 years, that's a pretty long drought for anyone, as you can ask any Ranger fan.
It's an extremely long drought, and like you said, the Rangers, it was the whole 1940 chance and all that, but people don't really seem to have a concept of just how long ago 1969 was. It was a long time ago.
Yep.
And that is, that's where we are with the Jets, and they, like I said before, they haven't reached a Super Bowl since.
Nope.
I mean, I don't know how many other teams there are in the NFL who haven't been to a Super Bowl in the last. I mean, hell, how many teams weren't even around 50 years ago?
Exactly.
So
anyway, brother, we're gonna take a break. You're listening to From the Press Box right here on 90.3 WHPC. I am Rob Leonard. He is Tim Leonard. Tim, you're at Twitter at
Real Tim Leonard.
It's now easier to listen to the voice of Nassau Community College on your phone.
Stay connected to your favorite radio station anywhere you go on the iHeartRadio app.
Never miss shows like the Nassau Morning Madhouse, It's Saucy, or the Radio Rumble Again.
Streaming 24/7, 365. Listen to WHPC everywhere.
iHeartRadio is radio and unlimited music all in one app.
Listen live now in the iHeartRadio app and at iHeartRadio.com.
Just search for 90.3 WHPC.
A Super Bowl champion, U.S. Congressman, publisher of Long Island Business News, award-winning authors, physical fitness, life coach, and celebrities like Billy Crystal and Eddie Murphy? I had no idea so many awesome people got their start at Nassau Community College.
Well, they're always saying that NCC is where success stories begin. With people like that as graduates, it must be true.
Hello, I'm Dr. Linda Nadian.
And I'm Aurora Workman, the president of Nassau Community College Alumni Association.
Together, we're the hosts of Lion Tales, a show that highlights proud graduates of Nassau Community College. Join us each week when distinguished alumni stop by to share stories, laugh a little, and remind us what things were like when they were students at Nassau Community College.
My fabulous friend Linda and I will also share the latest alumni news and updates, so tune in Tuesdays at 4 p.m. to the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC, or listen online with the iHeartRadio app.
We got a male age 20, possible overdose.
Led Zeppelin? The Kinks? Van Halen? What is this? Who did this?
That's exactly correct, Sergeant Johnson. Who did this? This wasn't any ordinary overdose. This was a rock overdose.
It's Rock Overdose, Mondays through Thursdays at 2 p.m. on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Welcome back to From the Press Box right here on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. I'm Rob Leonard, your co-host with my brother Tim Leonard. Hello back, brother. How are you doing?
I'm good.
That's good to hear. That's good
Entertaining
to hear.
commercial.
Yeah, we love entertaining commercials. By the way, if you want to listen to us, let's say, not on the radio, but somewhere else on a listening device, you can go to the iHeartRadio app, or you can go to the TuneIn app. Of course, go to our website, nccradio.org, and you can listen to us there, too. Find out about all the great programming here at WHPC. We have like 60 different shows. A lot of them are rock, but we cover all variations of rock, too. So there's a lot of good stuff here at WHPC. We listen to it when we're... And also, remember, and I know Timmy's done it, set your preset on your car to WHPC.
Button number 1.
It can be number 1. Number 2 is fine. We don't care as long as it's one of them, as long as you know it. That's the main thing. Anyway, brother, where do we go from here? We should say we did talk about the 50th anniversary, which happened on Saturday. of Super Bowl III. Joe Willie, of course, out there. Matt Snell should have been the MVP. Emerson Boozer, among some of the great players from that team. Matt Snell.
The defense definitely didn't get enough credit for that win.
No, and that's because of Joe Willie. And
yeah, obviously.
Yeah, but the defense played incredibly well that game, and like I said before, I do hope the NFL Network shows the actual broadcast, which was only found like 20 years ago. It was lost for years, and then someone found it, and it's not a great print, but who cares? It's an actual game, and you see how much ball control the Jets had in that game. It was purposely done to slow the game down.
Obviously, that's what they had to do.
Also, there was something interesting in Sunday's Daily News also, brother. We mentioned Wally Matthews' column, our friend Wally. Frank Fitzpatrick of the Tribune News Service wrote an article about Earl Morrall. And the headline read, "Before Nick, it was Earl." And it talked about how Earl was the ultimate backup quarterback.
Right.
And it also talks about Nick Foles. Last year he was a substitute who brought the Eagles to the Super Bowl. And, Earl, I don't know if Earl should be in the Super Bowl. I mean, the World Series. The World Series. The Hall of Fame. I'm picking everything else but what I want.
No, not the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I know he's not in it. But interesting, he was on all these winning teams. And, of course, the story after the Super Bowl will be Nick Foles a little bit because of some things in his contract. He might be let go or traded or whatever. So,
he's going to be a free agent. I mean, he was, and it's quite likely that a team is going to throw a lot of money at him. And make him he's already a wealthy guy, right, based on several years of NFL salary, but he might become a very wealthy guy depending on what he chooses to do with his future.
And of course, we'll see what the Giants do. The Giants, you have Eli Manning as your quarterback, but how many more years, if any? That's going to be the tough decision for the Giants to make this coming off season. And matter of fact, there's a lot of things the Giants have to do. Almost too much to talk about at this moment, but the Giants are going to be making a lot of moves.
Let's let some of the Giants stuff shake out before. I don't want to start speculating on what the Giants need to do.
There's too much to speculate on.
There's line issues. There's quarterback issues.
Right.
There's all kinds of defensive issues.
Right.
So let's let the off season happen for the Giants and kind of go from there, and we'll figure some of it out anyway before the draft or after the draft, and kind of go from there.
By the way, brother, I have to read this. Don't forget about the German Hit Parade, Monday at 7 p.m. Join Uwe Riggers as he plays songs and sounds of today and yesterday from many different parts of Germany, plus news of interest to the German-American community. That is the German Hit Parade, every Monday at 7 p.m. right here on 90.3 WHPC. The voice of Nassau Community College. So just some programming reminders here.
I enjoy that show, bro. I cook up a couple of bratwursts and I listen to that.
Well, I see Uwe a lot. He comes down here on Mondays. I'm still here, and whenever he has a guest,
mm-hmm.
he has connections with a deli. I won't mention which one, but he owns it, and he brings down this great platter every time.
Oh, beautiful!
I wish he had guests every week. I mean, you know how much I love liverwurst. So one day he asked me, "Rob, would you like something?" I'm bringing it. He didn't say he was bringing out trays. This is, what do you like? And I go, I'd really like. I'd like some liverwurst on some toasted rye. And he brought it down for me. I was like, "Oh my God, this is so good!" Of course, it was so good.
That's what we need to get a deli as a sponsor.
Well, that'd be fun. We
got to work on that.
We get like every week we come in and there's some food there. So
yeah, let's anybody who owns a deli who's listening, feel free to contact us.
Yes,
and we'll work something out.
We'll take some sponsorship. Also, we should say that next Monday there is at Miller's Ale House in Levittown. There's going to be WHPC Day.
Yeah,
a certain amount of the monies are going to WHPC as part of a donation thing.
15% of your bill, brother.
Right. So if you want to help WHPC raise some money and eat at the same time, just go to our website and check it out. And for more information, it's a pretty cool idea. I know
you can meet us too because we're going to be eating.
We're going to be eating there. We'll be there and having some fun. Okay, brother. Let's quickly talk about the Islanders. We're running out of time, by the way. We're running out of time. The Islanders. This past Saturday, they actually lost at the Barclays Center. The only good thing about the Barclays Center right now is that the Rangers couldn't win until Saturday night.
True.
So
that was unfortunate.
Yeah, so it's always great when the Rangers lose, but they played pretty well on Saturday. And by the way, the Islanders won on Sunday, yesterday, defeating Tampa Bay. And right now, the Islanders are in 4th place. And
still, I got to look at Washington at some point, because it seems like every time we check the Islanders' place in the standings, they're in 4th place. But they had come off winning 9 out of 10,
right?
And they were still in 4th place. So the Washington Capitals must be having a hell of a season or a hell of a run, because it seems like the Islanders can't really do anything to catch up to them.
No, and actually the Metropolitan Division is becoming. We were talking about how this division was probably the toughest in the NHL. It's starting to spread a little bit. Middle-age spread is hitting it. The Washington Capitals are at 59 points. The Philadelphia Flyers, they must be going crazy in Philly, 38 points. So it's starting to spread a little bit. New Jersey at 41, and the Rangers at 43. So
the Rangers, I mean, this was expected to be a rebuilding season for the Rangers. So, I mean, whatever happened, if the Rangers finish at around 500, I don't think the Rangers are going to make the playoffs. But if they can be close, then to me that's a successful season for them. But
right.
Don't count them into any kind of playoff picture, because they're not going to be in it. But like you said, the Islanders,
though they have been playing well, better than I thought they were going to play. I thought this was when they admit they're doing a rebuild. Last year, next year will be a rebuild year. Well, rebuild year, that means they should be like Philadelphia. Instead, they're not. So we'll see what happens with them.
Well, Flyers are just bad. So
yeah, they are. Yeah,
it's ugly down there.
Yeah, well, that's not a bad thing either. Yeah.
Exactly, brother. But the Islanders took one shot against the Rangers at the Garden on what was that? Was that Friday? It was the first game of the home and home. That was at the Garden. The Islanders took one shot in the third period and got the goal that won the game.
Right. Which
that was with like a minute and 26 seconds left, I think it was. But the Rangers at one point in the third period had outshot them 13-0. Got the tying goal, made it 3-3, and the Islanders finally got the puck out of their zone late. And I think it was Josh Bailey who got the game winner. But and Henrik Lundqvist was just sprawled on the ice after the puck went in, because he couldn't. He was probably just absolutely stunned. He's like, I haven't seen a puck for 19 minutes, and now one shot and the game's over.
Yeah, that's kind of crappy for him. He's still a good goalie, and your team should get a goal if you're shooting that much. So. Well,
they got one. They tied the game because the Islanders had been winning 3-2. But I mean, the Rangers kept the pressure on for pretty much the whole period. And it seemed like every time the Islanders were trying to get the puck out of the zone, they just turn it over, and here come the Rangers again. So it was a lot of downhill skating, as they say. It wasn't relentless necessarily, but it was all the pressure was in the Islanders zone. And finally, they were able to get a counterattack off of it, strung a couple passes together, and then pass, shot, goal.
Yep.
It's like, okay, here's 4-3, and there's a minute and 20 seconds left to do something about it.
Right. By the way, just as a little reminder, February 28th, which is a Thursday night, that is the night John Tavares returns to the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum, wearing his Toronto Maple Leaf jammies.
Yeah, he's gonna get blasted.
Oh, he's gonna get really blasted.
We can talk about that more when the time comes.
But it is something to look forward to.
Yes. So anyway, we got hockey and.
Well, let's talk quickly about the Yankees. DJ, how do you say his last name?
LeMahieu.
LeMahieu signed a 2-year, $24 million contract.
There's two reasons why that's significant. The first being that number one, DJ LeMahieu is a pretty good player who has been a Gold Glove second baseman and is expected to take on a utility role with the Yankees, meaning that he will play some second base, some third base, and they say some first base, even though I don't know how much actual experience he has playing first base in the major leagues. But that is the expectation for him. Now, the reason that he would play some second base is because it's very possible the Yankees could move Gleyber Torres to shortstop, depending on Troy Tulowitzki's availability, or especially early in the season. You have to remember, Troy Tulowitzki didn't play at all last season because he had surgery to repair bone spurs in both heels.
Right.
You don't know how he's going to respond as far as spring training goes, and how much work you can give him and how much you can tax his body. He's 34 years old. So the Yankees obviously are going to want to ease him into a day, but Tulowitzki wants to play every day. He stated that at his press conference. He has stated that before when all this happened, when the signing was announced. He said, I want to play every day. I want to get at bats every day. So he's certainly not looking to be a part-time or a most of the time shortstop. He's looking to be the guy on an everyday basis. So that's his expectation.
I hate to cut you off, brother. We only have a few minutes left.
Yeah.
We should say the Mets signed Jacob deGrom. $17 million for this season coming up in 2019, worth every cent. There was actually, and the Mets got a great deal if you look at it.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and call it a great deal because obviously DeGrom got a massive raise, but at the same time, he deserved a massive raise. He had a historic season last year. You hope. Let's put it this way: Jacob deGrom is not going to repeat what he did last season. That would be a ridiculous ask by Met fans. You can't expect him to be as dominant as he was last season. Will he be a very good pitcher? Yes, he should be. But to expect him to basically start every game he pitches and not allow more than 3 runs, and all that, it's unrealistic. It's unrealistic to say Jacob deGrom will have a 1.7 ERA again. So, Met fans, when Jacob deGrom's ERA is 2.6, don't freak, all right?
Well, 2.6, I would take that in a heartbeat.
Exactly. So that's what you're getting for $17 million. You're getting one of the top pitchers in the game. All I'm saying is don't have the ridiculous, unrealistic expectations.
Okay.
Jacob deGrom will win games for the Mets. That's all you need.
Okay, brother, the show is over. Quickly went. My name is Rob Leonard. You've been listening to From the Press Box, part of the WHPC Sports Talk family. We're on 9 to 10 every day. The show becomes a podcast on Spreaker.com, also on the iHeart Radio app. Also, if you want to know where we are, go to nccradio.org. I keep saying com, but it's .org. And you find out more about our programming. Thank you for listening. Brother, see you next time. Next week you'll be in the studio.
Yes.
So we'll have another fun time.
Ready to take phone calls.
Okay. Take care and bye-bye.